US President Donald Trump, under fire over his government's handling of the Epstein files, has escalated his attack strategy, and he's now directly targeted his predecessor. Trump has accused former President Barack Obama of treason and declared that it's time to go after people. Speaking to reporters at the Oval Office, President Trump condemned questions about the disgraced financier Jeffrey Epstein as a sort of witch hunt. And then he launched into a tirade against his Democratic opponents, including Obama, Biden, and Hillary Clinton, and even against the mainstream media.
But you know what? If you look at those papers, they have them stone cold, and it was President Obama. It wasn't lots of people all over the place. It was them too. But the leader of the gang was President Obama, Barack Hussein Obama. Have you heard of him? And except for the fact that he gets shielded by the press for his entire life, that's the one look, he's guilty. It's not a question, I like to say, let's give it time. It's there, he's guilty. This was treason. This was every word you can think of. They tried to steal the election. They tried to obfuscate the election. They did things that nobody's ever even imagined, even in other countries.
Trump was also referring to a report from Tulsi Gabbard, the director of national intelligence, which tried to undermine the 8-year-old assessment that Russia favored Trump's election in 2016. Trump has been consistently saying that it was the Democrats who propped up what he calls the Russia hoax, which somehow said that Putin had helped Trump get elected in 2016 when he first won the White House. Trump's extended digression came during a visit with President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. of the Philippines. This was a stark example of Trump's campaign of retribution against an ever-growing list of enemies, Obama and Biden being top of that list. It even prompted a rare response from former President Barack Obama's office. And this is what that response read, and I quote, "These bizarre allegations are ridiculous and a weak attempt at distraction. Nothing in the document issued last week undercuts the widely accepted conclusion that Russia worked to influence the 2016 presidential election, and it did not successfully manipulate any votes." Unquote. After Trump's no-holds-barred attack on Obama, reports continue to surface about Trump's own troubled relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. CNN published photographs of Epstein at Trump's 1993 wedding to Marla Maples, who is the president's second wife. They even spoke to Epstein's brother, who claimed that both Trump and his late brother were extremely close friends.
It was about 2006 when he first got into trouble. It's known prior to Jeffrey's death, I hadn't seen him for 7 years, although we were always in touch, communication with telephone or emails, but we just never got together. And for the 12 years prior to that period of time, from like 2004 until 2008, we only got together maybe a half a dozen times or so, but we were always in contact. And in 2006, Jeffrey asked me to come up to his place uptown. He wanted to talk to me. So I was uptown, I stopped by. I'm not uptown all that much back then. I live downtown, and I sort of joke. I say to go above 14th Street, I need a visa. But so I went to talk to him, and that's when he told me that he was getting in trouble for being with girls that were too young. He said he was stupid, but he wanted me to hear it from him as opposed to hearing it on the news or something. And that's when I first found out.
But Trump chose to focus on a report by the intel chief Tulsi Gabbard. Gabbard's report has claimed that there was a treasonous conspiracy by top Obama-era officials to blame Trump for a Kremlin-funded conspiracy to interfere in the 2016 election. But this latest report is directly contradicted by a lengthy study conducted by the Senate Intelligence Committee that was signed by all Republican members of the committee. And that included Marco Rubio, who's currently the Secretary of State. The Obama administration never contended that the Russians had manipulated votes. Instead, Obama and the Democrats, as well as the Republicans on the Senate Intelligence Committee, had concluded that Russia did mount a major effort to influence voters in 2016. But Trump is having none of it. He struck an extremely defiant note at the Oval Office briefing. He claimed that he could have sent Hillary Clinton, the former Secretary of State and another one of his political rivals, to prison, but he chose not to. He said he would show no such leniency to Obama this time.
Well, based on what I read, and I read pretty much what you read, it would be President Obama. He started it. And Biden was there with him. and Comey was there, and Clapper, the whole group was there. Brennan, they were all there in a room, right here. This was the room. This is much more beautiful than it was then, but that's okay.
The president then listed even more enemies who he wanted his Justice Department to target, including former FBI Director James Comey, whom he fired rather unceremoniously. And further than that, in that list are James Clapper, who's the former Director of National Intelligence, and former President Joseph Biden himself. Trump's campaign to exact revenge against his perceived enemies has taken on many forms over the years. Over the last 6 months, he has pulled protective security details from former colleagues who've been facing death threats from Iran. He's also revoked or threatened to revoke the security clearances of Biden and his family, as well as officials from the previous White House. His administration has taken steps to target members of the media, university campuses. He's also fired or investigated government workers who were deemed to be disloyal. The re-examination of the intelligence around the 2016 election began with John Ratcliffe, who's the current CIA director. He had ordered a review of the agency's report that went into the intelligence community's assessment that was made in December of that year. The review was deeply critical of the Obama administration and the former CIA director John Brennan. But CIA analysts took issue with the speed at which this assessment was made and accused Brennan of allowing an unverified dossier prepared by a former British intelligence officer, Michael Steele, to influence the assessment. But Brennan has long denied the so-called Steele dossier and that it had any impact on the intelligence community's assessment of the 2016 election. John Ratcliffe further wrote on social media that the review he had ordered had shown that the process was corrupt, and then he made a criminal referral to the FBI. The FBI is yet to respond to this referral, but it's likely that they would initiate criminal proceedings against former members of the Obama White House. Last week, Tulsi Gabbard also issued another report which criticized the findings of the intelligence assessment even more bluntly. It directly laid the blame at Obama's doorstep, saying that he had visibility and authorization of the misgivings of the intel community. Gabbard's report suggested that in the winter of 2016, intelligence officials under pressure from the Obama White House changed their assessment of the Russian election interference. Their initial assessment was that Russia had failed to mount a significant effort to hack the election. Later, under pressure from Obama and other officials in his White House, they changed that assessment to reflect that the Kremlin was trying to boost Trump and denigrate Hillary Clinton, who was his Democratic opponent in that election. Now, this is in direct contradiction with what the intelligence agencies had found back in the aftermath of the 2016 election. Intelligence officials had concluded that Russia had not engaged in any major effort to hack election systems and to change actual votes, but they also believed and wrote in that report that Russia had tried to influence the election in various ways by releasing hacked documents that would harm Hillary Clinton and sow dissent. This was a finding that was upheld by the Intelligence Committee of the Senate. But Trump now wants to rip it all open all over again.